All right. Okay. So now what I want to talk about, so we're going to do TaxStone tomorrow. I want to go through just a basic overview of some of the tools that we're going to be using. And again, you'll get more training on these. You already have some training on Go High Level. So Drake is the name of the tax software that we're going to be using. That's what you're going to use to actually prepare taxes. We'll prepare taxes there. We'll file the taxes there. It's like the most important one, right? It's the one that actually submits stuff to the IRS and to the states. Separately, we have TaxDome. TaxDome is our client document portal. This is where like the clients can send documents back and forth. We can, share documents there. It's secure. We can send invoices. We will also track the status of tax returns here that we're preparing. Yes, Katie? Sorry, Katie, was that you? I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Sorry. I thought you told me that TaxDome was only going to be used for North Ogden, and that is that wrong?
That's wrong. Yeah, TaxDome's always going to be used for all of them. Well, not always like for eternity, but this year has to be used for all of them. So Drake does not do the functions that TaxDome does, and vice versa.
It was Podium. Pardon me. It was Podium and Go High Level. Pardon me.
Okay. So TaxDome, yes, and Tricia will be walking us through a little bit with that. TaxDome's pretty user-friendly. It's a lot more user-friendly than Drake is. Drake has the feel of like a 1990s software. It really does. And we'll get into that, which has pros and cons. But we have Drake, right? We're going to prepare the stuff. TaxDome, it's like then we take the copies of the stuff to give them to the client. We get the client documents and they're stored in TaxDome. We invoice and record payments through TaxDome. Really, the only thing Drake does is prepare the stuff and file the stuff. The most important one of all of these is Drake. And as we'll talk about Wednesday too, as we do our cybersecurity training, like they're all important. Drake is like the most, because that's the one that actually can send stuff, right? Like if we goof up on the others, at least we're only goofing up with our clients. We're only goofing up internally. Like what happens in Drake is what's actually submitted to the IRS. So we try to limit the access to Drake as much as possible. So obviously, if you are a tax preparer, you have to have access to Drake because that's where you actually prepare the taxes. Some of you, if you have any assistants helping you prepare, they might have access to Drake, but we really don't want anyone who's not preparing taxes to have access to Drake because they can mess stuff up. And it's really easy to mess stuff up in Drake, and Drake doesn't have an undo button. It really is like a 90s kind of thing. And it's way more finicky. You can mess stuff up. It's hard to undo it. So we're going to super limit who has access to Drake. One thing that you've gotten right now that we should put here right here too is Parallels. Everyone should have gotten an invitation from Advantage IT. You should have gotten those emails, I think, over the weekend. So check to see if you got one. Parallels is our cloud storage / server. It's it's a remote desktop, right? So for Drake itself, I guess I'm gonna put this so it makes sense. Drake is an actual, what is the word for like, where are you software people? It's a physical software. It's like actually on the desktop, right? It's not cloud-based. Drake isn't. And so what we do though is we have a remote desktop to hold that software versus like TaxDome, Go High Level, Google. Those are all web-based, right? So you can be anywhere you want and jump onto a website and be able to access Go High Level or TaxDome or Google Workspace because it's just web-based. Drake is not. Drake is like old school QuickBooks, like that's on your computer, right? Like you have to be at your computer to be able to log into the software that's on your computer. So what we don't have is we don't have Drake on your computer. So like the computer that you're going to be working at in the office does not have Drake on it. It should not have Drake on it. It should not have any client data like Drake stuff on it. Instead, it's housed on its own server in the cloud. And when we need to access Drake, we need to remotely access that desktop. And that desktop has Drake in it. So we do this really, well, it's a little bit convenience, but it's like 99% security reasons, so that we don't have those files on our computers. Instead, they are housed remotely and securely. And it's, I mean, so you got a link from Parallels. You won't be able to log in until you're actually at your computer at the desk. And you know, like we don't want you logging in from other places. There might be times that that's different, but generally no, like you're only going to log in from your computer at the office. But you'll be able to log in from any computer at the office. So all of the computers in the office will have the Parallels app downloaded. And then you log into that app then takes you to the remote desktop. And what I recommend, and probably we're going to make everybody, is to change the background of your remote desktop to bright orange, because it looks just like your regular desktop. And it can be confusing if you haven't worked with remote desktops before, to forget, like you can easily forget where you are. Like I'm on my computer, I'm on the remote one. And so I have my remote desktop bright orange. That way I know I'm in Parallels. I'm not working off of my desktop, even though I'm sitting here, right, working on my desktop, like I'm actually logged into my desktop somewhere else. We use Parallels. Again, it's data security, and we'll talk about this on Wednesday. These especially with Drake and with Parallels, but really with everything, you should not be sharing passwords ever. And that applies to everything. That really, really, really applies to Parallels. Like Parallels gives us access to the remote server where we house all the files with all of the client data and everything with Drake. Like you have access to that. You should not be allowing anyone else to use your login to get there. Like, no, like the answer is no, you should not be doing that. Each person has to have their own. Because it just has to be secure. And then, so that's the one weird one, right? In theory, all of the others, TaxStone, Go High Level, Google Workspace, anything else that we're using as a tool, you could log in from any website. So you actually could have those open on your actual computer, or you could have them open on the cloud, right? On your virtual server. You'll see this with when Natalie and Kennedy walk you through it as well. But how I do it is I basically only have Drake open on the cloud. That just keeps my brain clear, and everything else that I have open on my own desktop. So I'm going to show you a little bit how this works. So you will have an icon on your computer like this to log into Parallels. And this is where Advantage IT and Hossein will help you get set up so that you can get in. It will always push a code to your phone. This is another reason, like you just, so nobody else should be logging in for you. You will need your authenticator with you to be able to log in. Goes to my phone. I click to go in. And then I'm coming into the cloud. Which the desktop looks just like a desktop, like, okay, like I'm just gonna be on a computer. But again, I think let's make all of them bright orange. And now it's like, I know, like I'm in Parallels. I'm clearly in Parallels because, oh no. It didn't really kick me out. Okay. Yeah. So we work off of 2 monitors. Generally what I do is, you see my wrong screen, but I'll show you. So I'm pulling up Drake and then I'll move it over to the screen so you can see it. All of my Drake icons are here, right? Like, am I going to log into Drake? And with Drake, it's very interesting. There's a different software like icon and app, like, well, a link, it's not really an app, to log into the software for every single tax year. So if you're going to do 2023 taxes, you need to log into Drake 2023. If you're going to do 2022 taxes, you need to log into Drake 2022. And then you'll get here to log in and you will have your own password to Drake itself. Oh no, I just changed it. You should not be logging in for someone else or as someone else. It will prompt you to create those passwords, and it will prompt you to update those passwords as you go as well. So what I have now set up, you can see the background here. That's like really my desktop at home, right? Like where I am. But then I have Parallels open. And since I have two screens, I will pull up my source documents and my tax dome and everything else that's going on. I'll throw it on my other screen and I'll have Drake here. That is a system that's worked really well for me. We'll see what works best for you. You'll get a good feel for it. But Drake's here. So here we come to Drake. This is Drake 2023. We'll be mostly working in Drake 2024, but here's Drake 2023. You'll come in here to open a file. And here you can type in the client's name or the social or EIN to find it. So if we just come into like a test, right? Like, okay, welcome to Drake, guys. This is very exciting. Again, it's a little old school looking, but there's pros and cons with that. Like it's not quite as user friendly. Like if you don't know what you're doing, it's harder to navigate. But once you do know what you're doing, it's very easy to navigate, because what it is not like a giant funnel like TurboTax that's going to ask you 1,000 questions and then get you down to the right answer. Like what it is it's like a canvas, right? And so like if we know this client only has a W-2 and a mortgage statement, right? We don't have to answer 1,000 questions when we know this client only has a W-2 and a mortgage statement. We're able to jump right to those things and be able to file. Now, it does have a good system of checking errors. And by errors, it doesn't mean input errors like, oh, did you put a 5 instead of a 4? It's not going to check that for you. But it is going to let you know if there are things in the way that are allowing it to not be electronically filed. And I'm going to walk you through this as well. I'll show you that we have a checklist for how this is going to work. So there's a screen that's for all the client, just like basic information. And we'll have highlights on those that you're supposed to enter in for new clients or the ones to update of ones that exist. There's screens for dependents. There's screens to enter in the different types of income, the different types of deductions. Once we've entered all of those in, you'll be able to, well, really at any time, come and be able to view the tax return itself. And there's a few different methods of this. These are the ones that I use, that I'm used to. It does do some other ways of like actually viewing documents. I prefer this way. Once you're preparing things, like as you're inputting something into Drake, it's putting it where it goes in the tax forms and populating these forms. It doesn't mean they're right, but it means if you put something in, it's going to go there. So for example, if this person has a W-2 from Utah State, and I'm going to put in their W-2 information, let's say I put all the stuff in for their W-2. Then we have to put this, and we'll go through these. As soon as I put it in there, it already, like right now, should show up on the tax form. So it's like, okay, if I come and look at the 1040, because I just input a W-2 wage for the 1040, right now on this line, 1A for W-2s, I'm going to see that 15,000. So all of our input screens are really just telling it where to go on these actual tax forms. So we have a process of all the steps we're going to go through, and we're going to go through the same steps every single time. And it's absolutely critical that we do every step the exact same way every single time. Like really, when we look at what we're going to be doing over the next 3 months, it's so much of it really is an assembly line, right? Like it is production. We are doing and creating a thing, and we're going to do it the exact same step every single time. And that's what's going to allow us to go very fast and to make very few errors. When we don't do it in the exact right order, in the exact same way every single time, you're going to make more errors. You're going to have to start over. You're going to go slower. Like it's not going to work in the same way. So the steps that we're going to show you and teach you, like you just need to do them the exact same way every single time. And that's how you will get better. And with that, you'll develop the skill. Like, I have to wrangle clients with this because I'm going down my list of what I want to do. And then the client wants to interject. Oh, well, I forgot to tell you I got solar. Okay, great. That's great. We're going to get to that in a second. Like, I can't stop and go in the order the client wants me to go because it's going to mess up what I'm supposed to do. Right. So I can acknowledge the client, like, okay, great. Yep. We got that. We'll put that right here. Yep. We're going to come right back around to that. But we have to stay in the exact same order, or like that we just have to. So every time we're looking at Drake, it's gonna input things over here. Now, what it's also going to do once we're done, or we think we're done, it's gonna spit out messages and be like, if it knows something's wrong, it's gonna tell us, because we're gonna have a red box here with like an error message. And so, for example, this one says, hey, you didn't put the pin screen in. Oh, we gotta do the pin screen in. Well, one of our steps is to do the pin screen. So we do the pin screen, and we'll show you these. And I can look again and see, well, do I still have red messages? It's not going to let me file. Oh, now it says, okay, there's no direct deposit information. You need to go fill out the direct deposit information. Okay, so either I need to fill out the direct deposit information or delete the screen, which the default for any refunds is to generate a voucher and have the client just like mail in a check or pay online with their instructions. That's the default. We have to tell it to do direct deposit. We've rigged it on our end to auto send an error if you don't put the direct deposit, really to bring your attention to it, because most clients do want direct deposit. Direct deposit's better, safer, faster, easier to track. You know, like we want to encourage direct deposit where possible, but not all people want direct deposit. That's fine. But that's going to be where we're going to default to. So you're always going to get an error if you don't either enter in direct deposit information or delete the direct deposit screen. And that's just like one of the fail safes to make sure that we've covered that. Because that's a really common mistake that could be made, is we just forgot to enter the client's direct deposit. And like, that's not like a big deal, and that like we didn't do it wrong, but something small like that, like, oh my gosh, we didn't ask them for the direct deposit info and do it, like, just makes us look really dumb, right? Like, it wasn't even like this big complex like math error. We just didn't ask them how they wanted their money back, and then they didn't get it back the way they wanted it, and it took 3 weeks longer when they really needed it, you know, next week. So, and again, and that'll be part of the steps we're going to look at, and part of why we have the steps they are. It's designed really to be a checklist. Like, we want you to follow the map of how to file a tax return, because it is the checklist, so that you're not missing a step. If you will follow the steps, that's the checklist. You've got them all, right? You're not going to have to worry about, shoot, did I ask these things? Yes, you did. If you followed the list, all of these things are getting asked. But like on these guys, so let's say if I deleted it and said we didn't do that. Oh, it's still mad about something. Nope, now I at least got the green light go. So what we want it to look like is, when we do this view, this is a view to see the final results of the tax return. This shows me there's a federal refund of $3,400, a Utah balance due of $22. There is still a Utah error. Probably it wants to know the tax liability from last year. You guys will go through this too, but if there is a client from last year, we need to input what their 2022 state tax was. Otherwise, we'll get an error. And a lot of how you'll learn to read the tax returns and to be efficient at the tax returns is working through the error messages. So don't be alarmed when you're filing a return and it has the error messages. That's actually your roadmap, one by one, to go fix the things that have been done wrong. And it's not saying that you input the numbers wrong. It's you needed to clear some things, or you forgot a something. And those error messages are going to help be your guide in solving that, so you'll be able to file it. So now I've cleared all my messages. I've input all the stuff I was supposed to do. I can see the client's results. There's a federal refund of $3,400. They owe Utah $22. It's generated our fee. This number down here, this total tax refund, that is going to be the net between what they're getting back and what they owe. Now, the client, if they're in the office, they're seeing this right there with you, right? We're looking at that. And I'll tell the client, like, no, I want you to look at the stuff. You look at all the stuff too. We want all the sets of eyes on these things, because if there is something goofy, we should notice it, or we want you to notice it, right? So like, they're going to be seeing what you're seeing as well. So a lot of them ask, wait a minute, you said my refund was 3,400. Why does it now say 3,378? Oh, let me clarify. It's because there's a federal refund of 3,400, but then you owe $22, which that gets clarified even further in one of the steps as we wrap up the tax return. But that is a common thing the clients can bring up. So basically, once you have the tax return prepared, it's ready to go when you think it's right, and we've gone through all the steps, and you have green lights here in Drake. This is when basically you're ready to be able to exit and take the client's payment and signature and be able to go through the steps to move on to the next one. If you don't have green lights, if there's any error messages, that tax return cannot be complete right now. We do not want the client's signature. Do not take the client's payment. Like, something's wrong, something needs to be fixed. We only want to have the client sign and take the payment from the client when everything is ready to go and actually be filed. We don't want their money beforehand. We don't want their signatures beforehand. We want it on the stuff that's really ready to go. So I bring that up because that's also something that will happen frequently, is like, you'll get to this point and then a client will be like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot I have another W-2. Can I just pay right now and sign real quick and run back that W-2? No, we don't want their money right now. We don't want their signature right now. We want to collect those things only when everything is done. That keeps us organized. One is we know when we've taken the payment, but it also keeps us accountable. We don't want to take anybody's money until it's done. Like, don't pay us before, don't pay us half before, don't do any of that kind of stuff. Nope, pay us when we're done. And that way we have incentive to get things finished and make sure that they are all wrapped up. Now, what you'll do as the preparer is you'll get to this point when the tax return's done, and there's a process for how you're going to assemble it and give a copy to the client and explain the copy. And then we're going to put copies for them in their tax dome. And you're going to get their signatures, and they will actually have them sign the 8879, which is the IRS. Where are you? Here we go. Which is the permission for us to be able to electronically file. Now, the taxpayer only needs to sign this one form to give us permission, and it gives us permission to file the federal and any states. So they don't have to sign one for the IRS and one for Utah. They just sign one. One gives us permission to file everything, but they have to actually sign it. Or they can electronically sign it if they're not in the office. That's fine too. If there are two people on the tax return, the taxpayer and their spouse, they have to both sign it. We are not going to file the tax return unless both taxpayers have signed it. We run into trickiness here sometimes with clients too, but it doesn't matter. We can't. And so on these ones as well, like, I don't want to take the payment if I can't get the signatures right now, because then my system's off. I don't want to have a batch of some people that I have taken payment, some I haven't, some I have signatures, some I haven't. I want the signature and the payment at the same time, so then we can move on. So if they know the person's not here, they can't sign, well, then let's just send it to the person. Why don't I just electronically send it to both of you? You both electronically sign, and then I'll send you the invoice. You can do it all at once. And we'll walk you through those steps too. But this piece, this 8879, is the piece that then is going to continue on in our path. And we're going to talk about this tomorrow a little bit too. It's like the life cycle or the journey of the tax return. The one you get a signature on, the 8879, you're actually going to print, and that you're going to print it whether the person's in the office or not, whether the person wants copies or not. This isn't for the person, this is for us. If they're in the office, you'll have them sign this one. If it's virtual, you will have them already signed electronically, and then you'll print the copy that has the signatures on it. And that signed 8879 physically goes into a special bin up at the front desk. And when you're done, you go and you put it in the bin. And from that bin, there's a process where your admin staff adds it to a spreadsheet, makes sure things happen, make sure the payments are recorded, but nothing yet is actually filed. Then later, not the preparer, but there's one designated person in your office. If you are the operator, this is also you. You will file all, like by file, I mean actually submit to the IRS. We haven't actually sent the IRS anything. We've got it all ready to go. We've given the client the stuff. We've taken their payment, got their signatures, but we haven't sent the stuff to the IRS. We haven't submitted anything. We will have the operator submit everything to the IRS once per day. We're not doing it as we go along. We're not doing it right away. We're going to have it done once a day. And generally when we'll do that is in the morning, the 30 minutes before we open. You could also do it late at night, but for now we're going to put it in the morning slot. And that's going to be one person that does that. So they will go through, and there's a whole process for that and how that's done that we'll review with the operator to submit all of those. If they go to submit it and something has changed, if you've altered any of the numbers in between the time you've put the paper in the bin and they go to submit it, they're going to get an error message because they're going to check the numbers on this form with what's currently in Drake. And if something's not right and can't get submitted, they're just going to kick it right back to you, and you're going to have to go fix it and find out what happened. Once we submit, it's still very possible that that this gets rejected. There are a number of reasons why tax returns get rejected. And the good news is they're pretty common. Like a very common one is that the social security number for somebody is wrong, or the spelling for somebody's name is wrong. Those are things that will automatically reject the tax return. You have a kid that was claimed by somebody else, that will automatically reject the tax return. You have marketplace health insurance and you didn't put it on here, that will automatically reject the tax return. Now, by say automatically, it's not instantaneous because remember, we're not filing it while the client is sitting in the office with us. We're not going to file it for a few more hours, maybe till the next morning after the client leaves. And so there is a process internally within the office too of filing these, receiving the error messages of the ones that have been rejected, and then needing to fix those. What are the problems? Why did it get rejected? What do we need to figure out? Some we can figure out on our own, but most we have to contact the client and say, hey, it says that actually you have marketplace health insurance that you didn't include. Oh, I forgot I had that for a month. Yep, we got to have that, and that's going to change everything, and we got to go do that before we can submit. So there's a certain things that will create those errors and spit them back to us, which is actually very helpful. It is way more helpful for the IRS to reject the tax return right then at this beginning of the process than for them to accept the tax return, wait 6 months or a year, find an error, and then send the client a letter about the error with interest and penalties. And those are the two basic systems that the IRS has of catching errors. And it's way more efficient to do it right now. Now, the problem is they only have a few fields that it'll catch immediately. And again, those fields are like spellings, socials, very, very basic stuff that the IRS has the capacity to know instantaneously that the client's missing something. The rest of the stuff, they don't know. Like, let's say that the client's missing a W-2. Don't know that yet. The auto system, when we file, won't know that. The IRS transcripts knows that. So in 3 months or 6 months, eventually the IRS transcript, that information will be compared to what we're filing, and there will be a discrepancy. And then the client will be kicked out an automated notice saying, hey, you owe us another $1,300. And because a W-2 is missing, but they don't even say it like that. It's way more confusing to the client, and it's just like scary. We will know what it is once we see the letter, but even the verbiage to the client isn't clear. But so that happens as well. Same thing, like, any mistakes that are made. Like, there are so many places where mistakes can be made on the tax return that they will not be caught initially when we file. And it's important that we know that just because something's been accepted doesn't mean that it's right. just because you get a green message and like, okay, it's green lights, everything looks good. Well, doesn't mean it's right, because you could have put something in wrong. What the green lights are looking for, and even the error messages, are just very basic things that they know need to be there. It's not verifying that something was legitimate. It's not verifying, you know what I mean, that the number of W-2s are there, that the number of income, the amount of income is there. It's not checking the, you know, the charitable donations against what that charity, you know, claimed. Like, the IRS system doesn't have the capacity to match all of those points of data. It only has the capacity to match like 5. So, and it's good to know that, because in explaining that to clients as well, like, just because it's filed and accepted doesn't mean that they're free from fear of anything wrong. Like, no, there could still be things missing and still be things wrong. Now, what we give to the client is we give them a checklist to fill out, and they can fill it out either by hand or they can fill it out in TaxDome. And it's a checklist, and it has them actually fill out the stuff, so we know that we're not missing anything. And we're asking them, hey, how many W-2s do you have? So when they say 3, perfect. And we make sure 3 get input, so that later, if they get a notice in 6 months, it says, hey, you left off a W-2, we'll say, well, you didn't tell us that. You told us 3, we put in 3. It's in essence not our fault, right? If you left a W-2 off, we asked you how many W-2s, you said 3. I feel like almost all of these problems could just be solved if the IRS updated with technology. You know what I mean? Like, these are silly things that we're spending so much time solving. It's to make the data match, but those types of things will happen all of the time. One of the things that's really unique about PAC Tax, and that is really great for our clients, is, and that we need to educate them about, is that when those things do happen, if they do get a scary letter, if something is wrong, we help them with that, right? We say, great, if you get a letter, send it back to us. We send it to our PAC Tax defense team. We see what's happening. We see what the problem is. We can identify, was it our fault? Was it your fault? And either way, we help them figure out what needs to be done. We decipher what the letter really means. You know what I mean? We can intervene and contact the IRS and basically help them. Anytime something is our fault, that we did something wrong, which just does happen, we always fix it for free, and we always cover the penalties and the interest that's charged to the client because of a mistake that we made. That is very, very unique. Even though that seems to me just like a no-brainer, and you would think that anybody would do that, they don't. And so we like to point that out to clients as well. Like, hey, you know, we're going to get all this filed. If anything happens, if you get a letter like that, let us know. Like, we'll take care of that. We'll help walk you through that. We don't ever pay the clients tax. Whatever their tax was is what their tax was always going to be. So if we goofed up and did something wrong and entered the W-2 wrong or something, and it made it look like their tax was smaller than it is, and then shoot, actually I did the wrong digit and their tax is actually higher, and they shouldn't have gotten that refund, or they actually should have owed more money, we will pay the interest and penalties on it, but not the tax. But those things just do happen. Like, it's just, and this is why, like, all the time I'm kind of blaming the IRS to clients, because it really is true. Like, their system's bad. Like, it's like we're 30 years in the past, and we're spending a lot of time matching data that eventually the IRS has. So why are we even spending all this time trying to match the data if they have the data? And there are certain things the IRS will have the data for. So certain things go to IRS transcripts. An IRS transcript is what the IRS has record of. So W-2s, 1099s, and 1098s, all of these types of things are reported to the IRS. The IRS knows, but they don't know fast enough or in real time enough to catch it when we first file. That's the bummer. But they know eventually, so that within 3, 6, or 12 months, if something that was reported on the IRS transcript from a W-2 or a 1099 isn't on the tax return, then they're going to notice it and they're going to send something back. It would just be really great if they would do that right at the beginning, like they do with social security numbers and names. And I'm sure that's probably where they're trying to get to at some point with the technology. But it's just not here yet. So just know that it's very common that people might get things down the road. That's also why we got to ask them like 10 times, like, do you have everything? Is there anything else that we're missing? What W, you know, like, and that's part of our scripting too, because these poor people, like, they have so many things they have to include. And I'm always kind of blaming the IRS, and I'm always sympathizing with the client in that, like, yeah, this system's super dumb and there's a ton of things you have to go find, and it is very confusing, and that's why we're helping you. Um, and being very careful to not be condescending to the client or make it feel like it's the client that's so stupid. Because really, this is a stupid system. Like, nobody would invent this system like this right now. Like, they wouldn't. Like, it's a really bad system. And so that is often very reassuring for clients to hear that we're not going to blame them. We're going to help them. We will educate them. We'll point out to them. We'll help them know what needs to happen. We're not going to pay their tax, but we will help them. And we will totally agree that the system's super stupid. And how can we help you navigate through this super stupid system, right? So that we can get this to work. And that positioning, I think, is very endearing to clients. And it's just very helpful. Like, one of the main things that we hear from clients about what they hated about their last tax person is that they were condescending. They made me feel dumb. They made me feel stupid. They got mad at me when I didn't have my stuff. They would, I mean, like, we hear this kind of stuff all the time. We don't want to do that. Like, our position is the system really is bad. Let us help you with it. And if you're struggling, we do set good boundaries. We're not just going to let you run all over us. Like, you do have to go do your things, and you do actually have to go find this. And we're not going to actually let you file without your spouse signing. It's like, no, we have rules we're going to follow, but we can all agree the system's super stupid. And it's like, that's like the great equalizer in helping with these things as well. And there'll be more of all these things. And we're going to talk tomorrow more in depth about the journey of the tax return too. And we're not going to train just the operators on that. We're going to train all of you on the whole journey, because I think it's important to see. And for any of the other preparers, Jeff or Devin, for anybody that's working outside of tax season, when our staff shrinks down, if you end up preparing stuff outside of tax season, you end up working like an operator where you do the whole process of stuff. During tax time, we have it chopped up because we have help. We have administrative help to keep everything going. But we will come back to Drake. There will be a lot more training on Drake. I do not expect you to know anything basically with Drake at this point. Of what I've talked about so far, are there any questions?
How often would you say a tax return gets returned? Is that a fairly common?
Gets rejected? Yep, it's fairly common. Let's say if you're going to file 15 tax returns a day, which we'll talk about numbers, and I hope you do, I bet there's at least 1 or 2 that are rejected. So yeah, it's gonna happen pretty much every day. There's going to be a tax return that's rejected.
And that's usually client error, not having all their documents or something.
That's usually social security numbers are wrong, spellings are wrong, they're missing a marketplace health insurance statement, or somebody else has claimed their kid. Like, that's almost all the time what it is. Occasionally, it is also ID fraud, because if their social security number is right, but somebody else has filed a tax return using that social security number, the IRS won't let anyone else file. So once a tax return has been submitted to the IRS and accepted using socials for the taxpayer, the spouse, or their dependent children, the IRS says these have already been used. Nobody else can file a tax return with these social security numbers on it. So if one gets submitted, it's automatically rejected and says, hey, somebody else has already filed a tax return for this person. So in those cases, and we come back and say, okay, well, did we just enter it in wrong? Maybe we just entered the social wrong. Totally possible, right? Or if not, then it's like, okay, is there somebody else that claimed this person, or who else might have filed a tax return already? And if it's none of those things, then it's fraud. Somebody has actually tried to file using the client's social security number, and they will have to mail things in, and there's a system for what they need to file with the IRS because their social has been used and not used by them. More often than not, the problems are with kids, right? And it's fighting parents of who claimed who. And the problems are with spellings and spellings. A lot of times it's like, oh, they used their maiden name when they filled out the tax paperwork. So that's what we used because that was on their intake form. But actually they never changed their social security card. And the IRS matches the social security database. So they don't care the driver license name. They care what is the name on the social security card. So if that hasn't been changed, it needs to match that. We also get into confusion, especially when we have Spanish names or other foreign names where there are multiple middle names, or confusion as to what is actually the middle name versus what is the last name, because the IRS is matching like the first 4 digits of the first name and the last name. And so if their last name, it's easy to do. Like it's Michelle is Ledesma Rios is her last name. Okay, but is it Ledesma or is it Rios? And well, she goes by Ledesma, but is it Rios? And well, the social security card says Ledesma Rios. She goes by Michelle Ledesma as her last name, but according to the social security card, how they filled it out, Ledesma is the middle name, Rios is the last name. But the social security card also doesn't tell us which of those 3 names is which, because the last name could be Ledesma Rios, in which case we need to have Ledesma, those first 4 digits in the last name field, or it will get rejected, and not Rios. We can't have the middle name Ledesma and the last name Rios, even though the social just gives us 3 names and doesn't tell us which is which. So there's some little intricacies like that. Luckily, it's a pattern. You know what I mean? Like we know this is a problem in being able to identify. So sometimes we can, some of these rejects we'll be able to clear on our own. Most we will need to contact the client. But like if that one, let's say that the name and social was rejected, we'd contact Michelle and say, Michelle, we need a copy of your social security card. It's gotten rejected. So then we'll get the social security card. We'll say, well, the name matches, the social matches. So maybe we just have the middle. Maybe it's not that she has a middle name. Maybe it's the last name has 2 names. Okay, that's what I did wrong. I thought the middle was the middle and the last was the last. No, the last is actually 2 names starting with what looks like the middle. And resolve it that way. But we'll help you learn to walk through those rejects. But it's important not only for the operator who's going to be filing it, but when you're entering in a client's information into Drake, like it really matters. The first name matters, the last name matters, because those are automatically checked in the IRS database. The birthday matters. Those things are like automatic, like they have to be spelled right. They have to be correct. The social, the name, the first name, the last name, the birthday has to be correct for every person listed on the tax return. Versus like there might be a error on, you didn't put the federal ID number right on a 1099. The IRS won't catch that. It will not be rejected. But if you don't put the ID number right on a W-2, it will be spat back. So the input, like when it's our turn to actually input stuff, it is super, super important. And what you'll learn as we start going through the process is we have all these tools in place so we can go really, really fast. And we go really, 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 really fast. But then there's one step where we super slow down. And that's when we come back around and we check what we've done. And we double check our input every single time. And we're going to go over that next here in a second, what the actual process is. But trust the way we're having you do this. Like the exact steps, even if they seem redundant, there's a reason that it's built in that way. And it's going to make us accurate. It's going to make us efficient. Deviating from that, right, is really going to slow you down and your errors are going to go up. Stay right on track with exactly how we're supposed to file. Okay, let's do this. It's 1:31, so we're halfway through right now. Let's take a 10-minute break and come back at 1:40, and then we'll move on, if that works for everybody. So reconvene in 10 minutes. 1:40.
Oh, hey, are you not reconvening in 10 minutes? You're just going to stay right there? Oh, you're on mute though.
I was like, I'll reconvene. Yeah, we'll go reconvene. We'll reconvene. Yeah, tomorrow can we do Tax Dome? Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm wondering what all you want me to super include.
I think we super include just as if they were a new tax preparer, they need to know how to create a file. They need to know and spend some time on it. Like let's spend on TaxDome maybe 45 minutes or an hour, but not more than an hour on TaxDome. They'll need more in actual practical work, but that's something that they could also work on with Kennedy and Natalie. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
but let's do maybe a 45-minute to an hour review of TaxDome. And since everybody's sitting at their computers, let's have them all practice too. Okay, create a new client. Let's create a test file. You know, let's do that. Although, gosh, can they log into TaxDome yet?
And they have the same password for all the things. So I wanted to know if we're like going to send the emails transferring to these people. So like I have a list of questions and things that I want.
Can we get for tomorrow? Can we get all these people their logins for TaxDome
Yeah.
to their real TaxDome, right? Even though nothing's in there, that's okay. We can go in and create a test.
Oh yeah. Can I get their like emails and just like everybody send me their email and then when
I have that for you. I can see it. I'll share with you the same docket that I sent to Hossein that's got all the stuff that he's using for parallels as well. Bloop, 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 bloop.
So are they going in like as their Centerville at pac.tax person? Is that the email we're using?
Yeah. And we know that we don't have all the we don't have all the templates and stuff set up, but that's okay. Let's still have them log in and they can create a file.
Yeah. And I mean like what's the status on the Stripe?
Not happened yet, but that's okay. We're not taking payments yet.
Well, I just need it to set up the corporate account for TaxDome. She wants the Stripe account set up on all those TaxDomes before she'll.
Oh, so we don't even have a corporate account yet.
We do have a corporate account, but you wanted like the users for each of the TaxDome, but
Oh, she doesn't want to give us those users until we have the Stripe.
right, like the overseer users. Because so
Okay.
she's like,
We
so
can see this piece. Okay.
I thought Ashley had set those up. Did she not?
she hasn't responded to me, so I don't know.
I don't think so. I do not think that's done yet.
Christy, I just got another package.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Diamond.
Look how cute you are.
Keep coming. They just keep coming.
I keep coming.
Trisha, I'm sharing this with you.
What'd you get?
Wondering, Christy, if we could do, when the emails are sent out when you schedule,
Mm-hmm.
can we send those to the coordinator? Like, so when Megan gets the email, she can just start the TaxDome process instead of sending the appointment to Justin, for instance, something like that. So Megan would get the email that.
Yes,
so
it should go to the admin person.
yes.
So and that admin person probably for now should just be the email address because then we can switch it to whoever, right?
Yes. And we can switch it to whoever on TaxDome anytime, right? Anytime.
Yeah.
Like,
But yeah, if we know their admin, so what I shared with you is the one that's all the parallels. Let's create this and I'm going to use. Let's duplicate the user info and let's duplicate this one. I'm going to call one rename.
Ashley says that she's working on Stripe now. Hopefully get Christy's account.
That could be what she was asking. She was asking me if I had the last four of your social, Christy. And I couldn't find it. I said she must have given it to me over the phone.
It's in TaxDome, people. I'm just gonna add a column on this one, Trisha, that's TaxDome. Because we will add people to this and some people will not need parallels.
So for the new branches, I'm calling them branches, franchises, I can build the one pipeline that they could all go in that would be nice and pretty and perfect. It's not going to work for North Ogden,
Yes,
but it could totally do it.
that's what we want. That's totally what we want.
Okay, just making sure before I said that. But I have a bunch of, I went through and updated all the corporate ones that I transferred over to corporate. I still need to make one for everybody, but there's like outdated video links for, say, I want IRS transcripts. And so I wanted to know if we're still charging $35 for the power of attorney thing because there's a lot of places that say $35.
No, take that off. We didn't use that much. Let's take that one off.
We didn't use what?
We didn't use that one much.
Okay, so there's a whole bunch of different places that advertising that protection for the $35 with the video that doesn't work, so we can move them.
Yeah, we need a new
Just
video.
remove them.
Can you just update it? Can you fix it to take them out?
No, yeah, I can remove it all. I just didn't know if you still want it in there, there's stuff that needs to be moved.
No, take that one out.
Okay, and the organizer probably needs to stay, but I wanted to ask, do energy credits for like vehicles and 1099 for Venmo still need to be in the organizer?
Yes.
Okay, $50 for 1099 filing.
Yes.
Okay. On each tax dome, we probably need to update the phone numbers for the emails and because there's like RPAC tax number for the phone numbers.
Yes, within each tax dome, we need to update those.
And whoever is sending out the emails in the pipelines needs to be the one that was going to get the return responses. And so whoever the admin is, that's
Mhm,
who we want to sync to, okay?
mhm.
And in our trust pipeline, it has custom field names for the trust, but I don't think we want to keep it that way just because I don't think all the custom names are there.
Okay, then fix that. That's great.
This one's way low priority, but annual payroll tree for zero filing, you don't need to file. We need to fix the tree to have like $75 for zero filing.
Okay. I think, yeah, anything annual payroll, get with Kennedy and fix if you need information on that one.
It's just that cute tree. So if you can just fix it for next time.
Yeah, you can fix it. Do you need me to fix it or can you fix it?
I can fix it. I just,
Great.
firm owners on TaxDome, like on the front page, firm owner photo on the front page, login. Do you care about that? Do you want that? I was thinking, no, but I was asking anyway.
Do you want to share your screen so I can see what you're talking about?
I'm not in it on this one, but I can.
Oh, or let's meet about it later because I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yep.
I just want it all updated. How would you update it? Maybe update it how you would update it and then I can look at it.
I would say no, that you don't want to put the firm owner on
Yep.
the screen. You got your
Yep.
logo. And
Yep.
it asks for a social media links, which I also think is not a big deal to do that because you have it on other things, but we can totally do that. No problem.
I think yes, do the social media links, but that's good enough.
Okay. I think that was all of my things that I wanted to super go on. I'm meeting with the TaxDome lady in the morning, so I'll ask her about that folder thing. And I have a
Okay.
couple other questions. Is there anything you want me to talk to her about? This is my Zeneb lady. That's what I was
Zeneb.
asking about Stripe to make
I don't
sure.
have anything.
Ashley just said she already did look up your social and tax dome, so she's just waiting on Stripe now.
Woo.